episode of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. This is number 118. As you're logging in, if you guys would be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. Also, be sure to subscribe over on the YouTube, and when you're there, hit the notification bell as well. And if you enjoy my work and would like to support the program, consider making a purchase over at jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Gear link and check out our offerings. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. So my dialogue partner today is a young lady that I have known since my days of hanging out in Michigan way back in the mid 1980s. And at that time, she was a standout at Dan Timlin's Mid-Michigan Academy, which is where I was inducted into the Inasano International Martial Arts Instructors Association. So her hometown holds a special place in my heart. And with that said, Michelle Nelson Kuzma, welcome to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. How are you?
Good. How are you, Dwight?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic considering. So what? But now, okay. So you are an RN.
I am. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
What's life like for you now?
Very warm because we have to wear full protective gear all the time. So, other than that, I work in a dialysis clinic, so we have changed it where you can't come in at all until you've had your temperature taken and you've been screened, for health, or somebody posted at the door. And then you have to wear a mask, patients and staff, the entire time you're in the building. You have to wear a shield and a gown and everything when you're within 6 feet of any of the patients. So that gets hot. And then running around all day long because we work like 14-hour shifts sometimes.
Right.
But, it's to protect the patients because our patient population is at higher risk with kidney issues. So. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad that your shift allowed you to spend some time with me today. And I think when I say this on behalf of the entire country, my thanks to you and all your front end comrades who are doing what you're doing through these trying times. So I hope you hold up. But knowing you, you will, because you've been tough ever since when I met you in '85. If you don't have to tell us exactly how old you were, but you were a teenager, weren't you?
Yes, I am now 49. I just turned 49 a couple weeks ago. So back in '85, I would have been 14.
Oh, well, happy belated.
Thank you.
So you were 14 or so. Wow.
Yeah, I started at Dan Timlin School when I was 12. So by the time we started having the seminars, and I don't know if you came around before that, I think we had a seminar in '84 with Dan and Osano. I would have been about 13 then, but we used to have Dan and Osano, Larry Hartzell, Chris Kent, Cass Magda. Everyone came because Dan and Osano wasn't going all over the place like he is now because he was still not as well known, and Michigan was one of the first. My instructor, Dan Timlin, that was the first place that brought Dan and Osano and Larry Hartzell and all those people to Michigan. That was my instructor school.
Yeah,
so I started coming.
I seem to recall now that I thought, you know what, I'm going to go to Michigan because that's not as popular a place as Los Angeles. I think I had some crazy idea like that if I went to Michigan, there wouldn't be that much of a crowd. But if I remember correctly, there was quite a crowd, even in '85.
Yeah, I think by the time, '85, people started coming. We had people, well, were you in Florida back then, or where did you
No, I was still in Barbados.
You came from Barbados to Michigan?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And then that's a long ways. Yeah. And then we had people coming from all over because, like I said, Guru Dan and Osano wasn't making a seminar in every state, every weekend, every country like he does now. Not every, but So you had to kind of go where he was
Mhm.
And a lot of those places was our place. He would come to Dan Timlin's school. I mean, I believe it was once a quarter, so it was like 4 times a year. He would come there for
Yeah.
2 months. Then we had Larry a lot, Larry Hartzell, same thing. So we were always having seminars, and we got to meet a lot of people. So I was
Yeah.
very, very blessed.
And then in 87 was the first Mid-Michigan camp,
Yes, and that's the first time
right?
I think I remember you. But if you were around in '85, I'm sure I saw you then.
Yeah, that's the date that I assigned to it, which is something I do because I'm so old, I really can't remember. So I'll just pick like an arbitrary date and I'll go, yeah, it was 85. And then I stick to that, right? But that was where it was in Michigan. I met Don Garin, right? Yeah, and then where who else did yeah, okay. I remember. You know who Inosano's assistant was at that seminar? It was Larry Hartzell. It wasn't Cass. It wasn't Chris Kent. It was Larry Hartzell.
Back in what, '85?
In what I say is 85. Yeah.
That's probably true. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Larry also came for his own seminars, and
Okay.
Cass Magda came also. He's the one, from what I remember, that taught us Muay Thai. Switching gears a little bit, because I remember Guru Dan and Cass saying, we have a man from Thailand. Of course, this was Arjan Chai that they were talking about, but he doesn't speak English very well. So Cass would come and he taught us Muay Thai. I remember that. So I didn't have the honor of meeting Arjan Chai until much, much later, but we did the Muay Thai as part of our curriculum way back in the 80s. We were just taught by Rudan and Cass and stuff.
So the picture of you with Ajahn Chai in Atlanta, was that first time you met him?
No, that was when I got my instructorship.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, I first met him in 2008 because I did the martial arts from the time I was 12 years old till, we'll say 12 years, because I was in college, but I still practiced. I came home on the weekends and summers and I would still practice. And of course I, went running and stuff while I was in school. So I still knew my stuff. And then I got married, started working night shift, started having a family, and I just kind of took a sabbatical for about 12 years. But then when my kids were old enough to be in school, I just really felt like I needed to get that part of myself back. I really missed it. And so I went back into JKD, and that was in 2007. And then I've been in it ever since. But 2008, Chris Malgeri had Arjan Chai over at his school. So I went there, and that's the first time I met him.
Right. Wow. For a not so popular state, Michigan's got some top-notch people. I'm just realizing that, you got the Hatches, you got Mel. Now, you see that kid, Chris Malgeri, I didn't like him. He was too good. He was just too boss, right? As a matter of fact, I went to, I think it was Inosano's seminar. I tell this story all the time. And I ended up in Canada.
Oh.
Yes, because I rented a car, and I ended up in Canada for like 5 seconds. I crossed the border and realized that I probably made a bad turn or something. So and then there's Timlin, there's the Hatches, and then there's you. Now, so when you got back into it in 2008, was that
7?
Okay, was that at your own? Is that when you started your own place, or was that with Chris, or with the Hatches, or how did you do that?
No, when I came back in 2007, I basically had to start all over again because I was really, really overweight, and I had not exercised. I had 2 children. I had had problems with infertility, and just this is why I'm saying I wanted to get myself back. So
Okay.
what I did is I went to a local school, which I don't want to name. It's not in existence anymore, but I was like, well, okay, the kids are in school during the day. They had a Muay Thai class during the day. And so I went there, and also then they started a jujitsu class also during the day. So I did that. And the weight just melted off me. I didn't even have to diet because I was working, I was physically rolling, and exercising a lot. And then of course, working in the hospital, I worked in the emergency room at that time. So that was very physical too. So that came back, and then I met Arjan Chai. I went back to see Guru Dan in May of 2008 at Chris's school. So Guru Dan was in May of 2008, and Arjan Chai was in June of 2008. So after that, I was just like, okay, I had just wanted to get back into it just for, I didn't have any intentions of going anywhere with it. I just wanted to do it for fun. But then after I went to the seminars, I'm like, I want to be an instructor. Because when I was 18, back at Dan Timlin's school, they were starting the apprenticeship programs and stuff, and I was one of his senior students, but I really didn't have any interest in pursuing an instructorship because I was going to go to college, and I really didn't think that I was going to do anything with it. So I'm like, okay, some of the other guys in the class were like, they wanted their apprenticeships, and I didn't pursue it. But when I came back, I met people that I had known back in the 80s at the seminars, like the Hatches and the Witoski, Keith Witoski, Lisa Charles, and all those people. I'm like, I want to do this too. And, they've passed me now. And before I used to, I used to be one of the top students, and now I had to start all over. But I decided that was the goal that I wanted to pursue. And I think I don't know this, but I just think that Guru Dan waited for a while to see if I would stick it out, because, you just show up after 12 years and say, I want to be an instructor. And, there's so much that you have to relearn. But David Hatch and Simu Lindo Hatch took me under their wing, and they're the ones that taught me. Dave has a knack for saying, you remember this? We did this back in 85 at the, okay, I was 14, but he has an engineer's mind. He's an engineer, retired engineer. So very detail oriented. And whereas I am a creative, more of the big picture, flowing movement, that sort of thing. But, he wants everything to be exactly right. And that was exactly the opposite of me. So that was what I needed. I know I drove them crazy, but he helped me remember things, and he knew what I knew before. So I think people that I met a few other JKD guys in the Lansing area that started way long after I did. And they kind of looked at me like, well, you don't know anything. And, they didn't believe me when I said, I was back in it in the 80s. And okay, well, whatever. And, but Sifu David and Linda believed in me because they knew I had done it before, and they knew I could do it again. So they just were very patient with me. And I went down there. He lives an hour and a half from me. They do. So I went down there after work for a private lesson, twice a month for a couple years, and then I also went down there for their group classes once a week, I think this was 4 years roughly. And I got recommended Guru Dan came to me in 2013 at the end of the seminar. He had me up front with my friend Steve Lilligan, and it was showing, he's like, show me this. And then at the end of the seminar, he said, Michelle, I would love it if you would join our instructor program. And I was just like, really?
And that's typical in Asano, huh? Right? You know, he brings you up, he makes you do stuff, right? Because he's checking you,
Yeah.
you know, right? But going back to your, I mean, that's very insightful that you go, okay, well, I'm the creative type, and Dave Hatch is the analytical type, and he's what I need.
Mhm.
You know, that's pretty insightful. Have you always known yourself that well? Like, know what you need?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I hope I've learned more as I've gotten older.
Well, ask your daughter.
Yeah. My daughter's out of the room now. I sent her away.
Okay, good.
But I do really, I mean, I do have an analytical side.
Yeah.
But I think my natural bent is more towards the creative side. Um,
Okay, how do those two sides come out in vocation and avocation? So in nursing and in martial art, how do those two sides manifest themselves?
well, um, I guess let me say the reason I say I have both sides almost equally is because I took a personality test back when I was in college. One of our professors wanted us to take the Myers-Briggs test. This was before they had, I mean, everyone now takes the Enneagram test and stuff. But the Myers-Briggs was what was in when I was in school. And it was like, are you left-brained? Are you right-brained? And I was like almost down the middle for most things. I leaned a little bit more towards the right side, the creative side, but I was fairly evenly balanced. And I think that first of all, my father was a martial artist and he was in the service and he was a teacher, you know, and he's kind of the one who taught me discipline and everything else. He's the one that enrolled me in the martial arts in the first place. And so there's that side was what I was taught, was the discipline and the analytical, and I was always really good in school as far as science and everything like that, so I do have that, but I hate math. I can do it, but it was my least favorite subject and I really had to work at it. But things like, you know, creative writing and English and things like that came easy to me, so that's my natural bent, but I learned the other side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So as far as nursing, I think it comes out, and that's one of the reasons I thought of, you know, it's like you can work, because then when you're in high school, you have to take these vocational tests. What would you be best suited for? And I came out equally on something in the arts, something in science, and working with people. And those were the three things. Instead of having one major thing, I had those three things. I'm like, oh, well, my mother's a nurse. And so I thought, well, I like the idea of being able to do the art and the science and working with people. I really like the idea of the flexibility of nursing, of having a useful skill that would always be needed. And in fact, I just told my husband last week, I'm like, you know, that's one of the reasons I became a nurse, was that I knew I would always have a job somewhere. I'm like, look where we are now, and I'm working. You know, he's, of course, he's off being a barber. They don't care if people don't get their haircuts, but
Exactly. Look at this. Yeah, look at this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I like that idea. I like the flexibility of when I had a family, I could work either part-time or I could work an opposite shift. And I've done all that. I've been a nurse for 27 years and I've worked full-time, part-time, nights, weekends only, afternoon shift. I've done all of it. So it's been a very good career choice. And then as far as nursing itself, you know, being creative, you do have to kind of like wing it. It depends on what field you're in, but like I worked in home care for 8 years. You're basically in there by yourself, so you have to just kind of figure it out. So that requires some creativity. So as far as martial arts goes, let me see. I mean, obviously you have the discipline and things like that in martial arts, but the creative expression is what I love about the martial arts, and that's different for every person. But you know, I think martial arts is perfect. It's a perfect blend of the right and the left brain, because you have to discipline yourself, you have to train, and you have to remember, and you have to do it correctly, but you also can be creative and flow and change and add things, as Guru Dan says, add what's
Right.
specifically your own. So
Yeah. I think that description is probably the most perfect description I have ever heard. Right? Oh no, seriously, as someone, because you're quite right. The blend of the scientific and the artistic, and working with people, that's martial art also.
oh yeah,
That's exactly what a martial art instructor needs. So I think that's the most perfect description I've ever heard. So yes, now I shall. Now I know exactly. I'm going to cut that little clip out and preserve it. Right, and I'll cut that out and preserve it. I wanted to go back to a little thing that you said about some of the guys that you encountered, and you would say that I was in this back in the 80s, and they would be like, oh yeah, well, she doesn't know anything, and whatever. You're in as a okay, so let me just explain to everybody that Michelle said to me. She goes, Dwight, you don't have enough women on your program.
I did not say
And
that. I said, why don't you have any? That's what I said.
And I feebly tried to defend myself, right? And say, no, I had this person, I had this person, I had this person. And Michelle said, that's not enough. You need to do more. So, okay, none of that's true. I just made all that up. Anyhow, but I am very glad that we did do this, because now I have that little snippet to preserve. But tell me what keeps you going in a male-dominated field.
Well, I don't really think of it that way. I guess because of the way that I was brought up. My father, well, when I was about 10, I told my dad I wanted to do karate. So my dad took me to a taekwondo school, and we observed a class, and actually I participated in the class, and it was very big on hype. Everyone, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and just a lot of trophies. And I looked at it and I told my dad, I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not what I want. And so we just dropped the subject. And then 2 years later, my dad had seen an ad in the newspaper that a new school was opening, and they were going to have a kids class. And that was, of course, was Dan Timlin's school, Dan and Tammy, their school. It was just opening. So my father said, I enrolled you and your brother in a martial arts class. So I'm like, oh, okay. So we went, and I loved it. This is kind of funny too, though. I remember talking to Dan and Tammy early on. I was 12 years old, and saying, well, how long does it take to get a black belt? And they said, oh, about 5 years. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to be here that long. So they're like, okay. And then after about 6 months, I kind of hit a spot where I wasn't feeling it. And I told them, I said, I think I'm going to drop out. And they said, oh, I'm so sorry. You were doing so well. And I'm like, I was? And they said, yeah, you were. And I'm like, oh. So I didn't drop out. And that's it. Just that word of encouragement kept me going. And it just got to be part of my blood, because because around the time I was about 14, that's when we merged with the adult class. I was the only female in the adult class. And I liked being the only female. I was kind of like the little sister, and I worked out with big men. These were men in their 20s and in their 30s, and they did not take it easy on me. I held my own. And like, if I was acting up in class or being giggly or whatever, I remember Reggie, my friend Reggie, he would always smack me across the head with a pad, like, be serious. So, yeah, I sparred men. It was a long time before we had another girl. And that was probably about 2, 3 years in. There was another girl who was actually serious. We had girls come and go, but another female
Mhm.
serious student was about 3 years in. And so, they wanted me to spar her. And I remember saying, I don't want to hit a girl. you know, so I never really thought about myself because Dan Timlin didn't make me feel like being a girl was an issue. Neither did
Right.
Dan Inosanto, neither did Larry Hartzell, neither did anybody.
Yeah.
And my father either. My father was like, I want you to be independent and be able to defend yourself. He taught me how to shoot a gun. He taught me how to change my own oil and, do all that stuff. So um, it was just something, it was natural to me. So I don't really think about that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And, I'm interested though, at age 10, what was there about the Taekwondo place that you said, no, I don't want to do this?
it wasn't
What,
real.
what,
It wasn't real.
but you're 10. What do you know? You're 10.
I was very mature for my age.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. So my good friend Neil Colliff is on here. All
Hey,
right.
Neil.
And yeah, he says that Helena says the same thing, but I'm not sure what you were talking about when he said that. But Helena is a nurse also, and I'm just wondering, have you ever? Okay, so you've never did you know that
No what?
that Helena is a nurse?
No, I've never met her.
Ah, see, I'm thinking you two would have a heck of a conversation. I mean, because there would be no Neil Colliff without Helena.
I don't know.
You
Was he
know,
married back in the 80s?
well, at one point, yes.
Okay.
I don't want to. I don't.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, so you can just talk to him about that off the air. So, but just keep in mind. All right, so I wanted to ask you this then. Role models in JKD, right?
Uh-huh.
But and in case somebody accuses me of being sexist, let's do female role models in JKD first, because I'm wondering about something.
What are you wondering about?
You give me your answers first.
Well, I've had 2 female instructors. One is Tammy Williams Timlin. That was Dan Timlin's wife. And of course, that might be part of the reason why I really didn't think about it because she was always there as an instructor the whole time I was at the school.
Right. Yeah.
Then David Hatch's wife, Simu Linda, was my other female instructor. So, there's those 2. When I think of females, I think of the senior ones in the Inosano program, which of course is Simu Paula Inosano, Cookie Vasilau. I think I'm saying Vasilau right. I'm not sure. But Cookie. And then Lavon Martin, Diana Rathborn. There's others, but those are the ones. Oh, Linda Ramsey, she is Rick Faye's partner when he goes to teach seminars. Let's see what else. That would probably be it.
Okay, right. The reason why I asked you to do that first is because I wondered whether or not you'd have any difficulty in doing that. You see, in pointing out because comparatively there's less of them than there are, right? Okay, so now give us the others, your other JKD role models, the guys.
The guys, Dan and Osano.
The guys.
Dan and Osano, of course, 100%. And then Rick Faye. Let's see. I guess those would be my main two because I have instructorships under both of them.
Mhm.
I also have an instructorship under Sifu Larry Hartzell.
Mhm.
He was an excellent man, an excellent martial artist. So him, but I mean, he's not alive anymore, but him. Um, Master Chai, I love Master Chai. You know, he's always really good about saying, you know, you can do it, ma'am, you can do it.
Yeah.
And never stop, never stop. Um,
Yeah.
so there's them. I guess, you know, I don't really think about role models quite so much as what am I doing to improve myself because I'm not that person. So me trying to follow somebody else around and become them doesn't work. So I don't really think about who can I be like, you know, I don't think about that.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, so when you went into, well, tell me the story behind JKD Academy of Lansing.
That's just my little personal dojo in my backyard. My husband built me a dojo. Um,
Did he build the Wing Chun dummy as well?
he did, yes.
Yes. Yes.
He did. I asked him to make me one. We got blueprints, I think, off the internet. This was a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
And he built it and he carved it for me. It has like wood burning carvings in it
Yeah.
and stained it
You
for
seem
me. So.
you seem surprised that I noticed that.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. No, I'm sharp, baby. I'm sharp.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. So that's your place in your backyard.
Uh-huh.
Nice. Nice. That's very Inasano of the 1970s, like Michelle.
Thank you. That's what I wanted
Yeah.
to do. I
Hmm.
remember talking to my friends when I was becoming an instructor. I don't think I had gotten the call yet, or, you know, but I was working towards becoming an instructor. And, you know, a lot of my friends run gyms,
Yeah.
which is fine. But I remember saying, you know, I don't want to be in a position where I have to depend on it for my income.
Right.
And I don't want to be in a position where I have to take students that I don't want to take.
Hmm.
So I always wanted it to be just kind of a personal, you know, me to student, kind of, I mean, not father to son type, but you know how back Guru Dan's always talking about, you know, they kept it within the tribe, they kept it within the family, they only taught it
Yes.
to people. Um,
Yeah.
that's more my style. Now I have done some teaching and some self-defense seminars and taught for other people in their schools, like as a substitute and things like that. And I can do it. I just don't
Mhm.
want to do it as a vocation. Um,
Right.
so I just want to be able to teach when I want to teach and not teach when I'm busy, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So.
And well, and then being a creative, you can do it however you want, and and you don't have and you just identified a bunch of the pressures that professional martial artists have.
Yeah.
You know, if you're looking at the bottom line, and you're like, well, we need to hit this number. You
Mm,
know, so maybe you do take people in, and you're like, but I have to, right? So
yeah.
yeah, that's pretty smart. That's an enviable position, I think.
Well,
You
thank
know, I think that secretly a lot of people who run a full-time school
you. Mhm.
would like to be in a position where they could do it, but it wasn't their livelihood.
Yeah.
You know, they had something else. Yeah, they had something else. So, okay, so I wasn't aware of that, right? Because as I was doing the research and what have you, I tried to find like a website for the school or whatever, right? And I didn't. So then I thought, okay, so I'll ask her about that. So that tells me then what. So that's why it says. JKD Academy of Lansing is dedicated to the continual learning, growth, and exploration of Jeet Kune Do. But I wanted to ask you about the second part of that sentence, because it says, and all of the martial arts that fall under the umbrella of JKD. So I wanted to ask you, I wanted to ask you I'm trying to be controversial here, right?
Okay.
What do you mean by, what do you mean by the umbrella of JKD?
Well,
What does that mean to you?
I said that as part of my mission statement to pacify all of the people who are, that's not JKD. I'm not into that. Don't. I'm not going to be one of these people who sit here and argue on the internet about what's original JKD and what's concepts, and I'm not going to do that.
That's my job.
Huh?
That's my job.
That's your job, right? Yeah. So, I know that JKD, as far as the curriculum that Guru Dan Osano teaches, I think I counted like 11 at one point. I think there's more now. I think I got up to 17 different arts that he has taught us elements of as part of JKD. So, but that doesn't mean that they're a complete, like he's taught us some, can't think of the name. It's Cambodian kickboxing, and I never say it correctly. Pradal
Sere.
Yes, Pradal Sere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's taught us elements of Pradal Sere at the seminars, but that doesn't mean I'm an expert in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it falls under the umbrella of JKD. Not that I wouldn't want to pursue it at some point if I lived in California and could train all the time with, Omri Ban, which would be great. But
yeah.
So I do study classical Wing Chun. That is something that I really love. One thing that a couple years after I came back into martial arts, so it would be about 2008. My instructor at the time had said to me that he's like, you should really check out this other teacher. He teaches classical Wing Chun. And it'll help you with your Jun Fan. And I'm like, okay. And I went and I loved it. And his name is Sifu Jeff Coleman. So I've been going to him off and on ever since. I say off and on because, with my work schedule and things like that, it's not been very often lately. But he's very, very good. He's under Ip Man's second son. So I'm in that lineage as well. And I know that some people, when they worked out with me at seminars, like, wow, how come I can't get in on you? How come you cover your center really well, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, I attribute that to the Wing Chun. So.
Right. Hey, what year was it that we ran into each other in Illinois?
What did you say?
What year was it that we ran into each other in Illinois?
April 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember.
See, that's what I keep you around for, because you've got better recollection than I do.
Yeah, I remember seeing your name. I had just joined Facebook in 2010. It was actually Sifu David Hatch, that had encouraged me. He's like, if you get on Facebook, it'll help you with networking and, things like that. And so that's when I joined, was 2010. And I remember seeing an advertisement or something about a seminar with your name. So I'm like, I have to go see Dwight. So we went down and saw you. So that was
that's quite nice of you. I never got the videos from that event. So
I don't think I did either.
Yeah, I never got the videos from that. So here's the thing. Because I had a bunch of questions for you. Oh, Aubrey Lee in Ohio. He asked if you remember him stepping on you.
Stepping on me? When?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. That's his question. He says, Michelle, do you remember my stepping on you? I
Is
don't
he talking about
know.
the seminar? It would have been September. I think he kind of bumped into me a little bit. Is that what he's talking about in Waterloo?
I don't know. I don't know. What's funny is that, he was on the program with me a while ago,
Uh-huh.
and he found a picture of me and him from like St. Louis or something
Mm-hmm.
in okay, he says at the Fort Wayne seminar.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Aubrey says, that he stepped on you at the Fort Wayne seminar.
Well, that would be, well, Waterloo is kind of near Fort Wayne. That we call it the
Okay.
Waterloo seminar. Um,
Okay. That's
no,
Keith Witowski's seminar,
yeah, Keith
right?
Petoskey's. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, I mean, he remembers stepping on you, even if he did. But did
It's
you ever?
okay.
You did.
Yeah, well,
You didn't go to St. Louis, right? You didn't go to the Missouri stuff.
no, they weren't
Um,
doing that until after I was on sabbatical. When I left and went to
okay.
school and all that, then they started doing that. So no, I haven't. And by the time I came back to the program, they had the camps in LA. So, um,
Right.
yeah, not St. Louis anymore.
What about Rick Faye's Wisconsin camp?
I went to it at his school in Minnesota. For that whatever reason, he had chosen to not do it at Wisconsin, but to do it in Minnesota.
Hmm.
So I went to it there at that school. That was 2017, and then my daughter went to school the next year. So I haven't been back because when he has that camp, is always the weekend she goes back to school. So I don't think it's a good time for me to be gone. Um,
Right.
so she'll graduate in a couple years.
Okay. How did you end up in phase in the MKG instructorship program?
Well, we see Rick Faye for seminars. He comes to Detroit, he comes to Cleveland, he comes to Chicago. That's where I go to see him, is those three places. Um,
Mhm.
and Sifu David Hatch had said to me, well, I had said to Sifu David Hatch, I'm like, what do you think's going to happen? And this is a long time ago. I said, what do you think's going to happen when Guru Dan isn't teaching anymore? What's going to happen to the organization and all that? And he said, you know, he said a lot of things, but basically he said, Guru Dan told me that Rick Faye would be a good one to follow. So
Mhm.
that's what I've done. And that's why I always go to the Rick seminar. So I started going, and I was like, I love him. Now, you know, Sifu Rick was at the Michigan camps with us, but
Yes.
I didn't get to know him like I did since I started going to a seminar. So I went up to him at one point and said, I would be interested, after Guru Dan is no longer teaching, to transferring over to your organization, and becoming one of your instructors, or working
Mhm.
towards that goal. And he's like, well, I'll make you an instructor. You don't have to wait till Guru Dan, doesn't teach anymore. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, well, okay, thank you. So that's kind of how that happened. He said, here's your book. Here's your, I know you know the stuff because I've known you since the 80s, and here you go. So
Right.
that's how
Right.
that happened. Yeah. And I love it.
Um,
He teaches a lot like Guru Dan, some of the ways he does things. And
yeah, for sure.
yeah. So,
So let me ask you this.
mhm.
So he gave you the book, where I guess the MKG curriculum,
Uh-huh.
right?
Mhm.
Now, what's your curriculum for your backyard school, and where did it come from?
Yeah, it's still in my brain. I'm trying to figure. I feel bad because I want to have a written curriculum, but a couple things. Number one, my students are all different. And so
Mhm.
some of the stuff that I was taught, this person wouldn't be able to do that because they have a bum leg, or this person has autism, so it's going to be more difficult for them to do this, so I tend to tailor things to the individual student. But there's some basics that I basically, everyone needs to know. But
Yeah.
it's not on paper yet. And I start to feel bad about that. And then I remember that at Dan Timlin's school, nothing was on paper until I was, I think, a black belt. Because I remember when he came out with a clipboard one day and he was like, okay, we're going to start teaching off of this clipboard. When you teach the class, here you go. And I'm like, why do I need a clipboard? But, because he never used to write it down, but he finally got it organized. And at that point, I'd been at the school 5 or 6 years. So I would like to get it organized.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe that Timlin didn't have a written curriculum.
Well, not in the beginning.
That
I mean, he does now.
I always thought that guy was like super organized all the time.
Well, he is, but it just took him a while to get everything. But it's like Guru Dan. I think that a lot of his organization comes from Simu Paula. She's the organizing one and he's the creative one. So I actually think it's kind of a martial arts thing. There's a lot of martial artists that are the right brain creative. I've also found a high percentage, this is not a formal thing at all, but I just know a lot of martial artists that are left-handed, and myself included. And being left-handed is a sign that you are dominantly right-brained, which is the creative side. So I think it's interesting, and I think they go together.
Okay.
So I do think that every creative martial artist needs to have an organized partner that can be the one to put it all down on paper and organize it for them. So that certainly helps,
But when you say it's not on paper, what about your notebooks? I mean, you must have collected a ton of notebooks over the years, huh?
Well, I have them. They're in a big pile, waiting to be organized, because some of those notebooks are from the 80s. So yeah, I have to type them up and make it organized. That's my lifetime goal. When I'm too old to train, I'll have time to sit down and do that, probably. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so people have heard us make many references to the 80s. So look at this.
I was 16.
Right.
That was 16.
Okay. All right. So going in either direction and just tell stories about those people that camp.
About each one on the page?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the far right is Salem Osli. And the thing that I remembered, I don't know if he'll ever see this or not, but I have a picture of myself with Salem kicking, like we're posing for the photo, and I'm doing a high kick and he's doing a low kick. And all the time when I was out of martial arts, I kept that photo and I put it on my fridge, and I did tell Salem that, because I saw him again about 2010, 2011. I saw him in a couple seminars, and I said that photo is what reminded me who I was and that I could come back. So that's what I love about Salem. Let's see. Guru Dan and Paula. I don't know. I guess how many stories? I remember Simu Paula, the first time I met her was at one of the camps, and she was, oh, you have the photo.
Yes. I just found it.
Who found it?
I just found it.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize I had posted that at some point somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the photo.
No, you sent it to me, but I already had it.
Was that in what I sent you? I'm sorry, I didn't remember.
I think that one was in what you sent me. Yeah, okay. but I had already had it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm wearing my Mid-Michigan Academy jacket there with our names embroidered on it, and they were made out of satin, and that's from the Dan Timlin School. So
yeah.
All right. I knocked over my computer. Sorry.
Don't do that. Okay. All right. Okay. So go back to
Guru Dan and Simu Paula. The first time I met her was she came to the camp and she was his fall guy. They were not married yet. The first summer, and then the second summer when she came back with him, they were married. So yeah, I remember her, and I remember you talking about Simu Paula because you said that chick has got it. You know, she was doing some CMAT gurus. She was doing
I said that.
and she was moving, and you said she really has got it. I remember that, and I remember, you know, even though she'd only been in the art for a couple years with Guru Dan, you know, she was training with him a lot, so she very quickly got it. And she also is a registered nurse, so I feel like she and I have a lot in common because she, you know, she's very good.
Right, that's true.
Yeah. So, Guru Dan, I love the man. I mean, everybody does, but I don't know what to say. When I made my instructorship in Muay Thai down in Atlanta at Training with the Masters, Guru Dan, I did it in front of not just Arjan Chai, but Guru Dan and Francis Vaughn. So I had to sit in front of all of them. And I was testing alone. So it was very, very nerve-wracking, and I actually was not happy with how I did because I couldn't hear what he was saying half the time because there was just a lot of factors. But they passed me, and Guru Dan gave a speech telling everybody down in Atlanta, because I didn't really know those people that well because I don't go down to Atlanta very often. I mean, that was the only time I've ever been. And he told them about how I was a little girl and how I used to train. And, you know, he said, I am so, so proud of her. And I was just, I couldn't believe it. It meant more to me than anything. And I told my husband that when I got home, and he said, that makes everything worth it right there, you know? And it did. So.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think it's because, you know, even if he doesn't talk about it that much, maybe, and maybe he does now, but I think he's always been impressed by the women who stick to it. Do you think? Right? Because to start out, there's not that many of them. Well, and then for somebody to stay with it as long as the guys have stayed with it.
Well, I do think it's harder as a parent, especially for women, because mothers generally do. I mean, this sounds kind of sexist, and it's, you know, less true than it used to be, but the mom is basically the primary caregiver. But I do have some martial arts guy friends who've had babies, and, you know, they've greatly scaled back on their training. So it's, you know, it's harder for parents. So yeah, it was, that's, I think, why I didn't train at all when my kids were babies. But once they got into school, they were old enough. My husband saw how necessary it was for my mental health to train. So, yeah. So, where was I going with that statement? I can't remember. But anyways, yeah, I stuck it out, and I'm really, really glad I did. So.
Yeah. Neil's saying he remembers the seminar because he was there, and there's a picture that I think you sent it to me. There's a picture of me and Neil.
Probably, yeah.
At one of and I think it was you who sent it for me. Okay, so then keep moving along. Larry Hartzell.
The thing I remember, okay, it was at that particular camp. You know, Larry Hartzell was showing us back in the dorms and stuff. He was showing us how to do the 1-inch punch, the Bruce Lee 1-inch punch. And so he had a big phone book, and he had like a couch or some pillows or something, and he had the guys stand in front of it, and he punched him, and of course they went flying into the couch, and he did that for a couple people, and then I'm like, Larry, do that to me, and he's like, and I'm like, please, Larry, please. And I'm like, why, Larry, please, and I just kept bugging him. He wouldn't do it. So, I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe legality reasons. I was a minor at the time, 16. So, if he had, caused me to go to the hospital, that wouldn't have been good. But, but yeah, I remember that. I remember him showing us that. And I remember how much, he would always tie people up, and people would be in so much pain. And it was just, but I was very, very flexible back then. And so it didn't bother me at all, those types of locks. I mean, you really, really had to crank them on me. And that was one thing that always annoyed my partners, is that they wouldn't know if they were doing it right because I was flexible. So I'm like, well, I don't feel it. So anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. Nino and Luke and Remy. Nino Bernardo, and he brought his two assistants, Remy and Luke, from London. And that, I think, no, I don't remember. I know he came to our school for seminars. I don't know if it was before that, or I think I knew them already by the time the first camp came. Anyway, that was really fun. And I remember an after party at one of the dorms or the houses where people were staying, and there was a lot of alcohol involved. And of course I was 16, and so I was like, I'm not staying for this. And I was pretty straight-laced, and so I just went outside, and Remy came up to me and he's like, I'll drive you back to your dorm. So he did, and being from London, he started driving down the wrong side of the road. And I remember that, and I'm like, Remy, you're on the wrong side of the road. Yeah, they were very sweet, very nice, and I loved them to death. And I wish I could see Nino again. He lives overseas, somewhere, an island off the coast of, is it Spain? I forget the name of the island. But yeah, he lives on an island over there.
Okay.
So,
do you remember Greg Nelson from those camps?
Yeah, Greg Nelson and Rick Fay. Rick got his associate instructorship at that camp.
Oh, did he?
He did, because it's on the video. So Greg and Eric Paulson and Rick Fay. Now, I knew them vaguely, but not very well, because we just thought of them as, these are the Minnesota people, and they kind of stayed in tents. And they didn't stay in the tents, they stayed in tents. So
yes,
yeah.
I was wondering if you remembered that, because they are so ridiculous. They are so, Rick and Greg would do rounds on the tie pad after camp.
Yeah.
Outside their tent.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, they were completely ridiculous. Neil Calder says, how do you have a copy of the camp video?
I don't have a copy of the camp video. I have seen the camp video.
Okay.
And I am not going to disclose anything further.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a random question, but do you have any other standout recollections of like a camp or a seminar or something? When did you get your instructorship under Renaissance?
September of 2013.
Where?
Waterloo, Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, so go back to the original question then. Any other standout recollections of at a camp or a seminar or anything?
I remember at the camp, Guru Dan asking me to come up front and do Heaven 6 and demo it with my partner. So I remember that, because I was only 16 at the time. I mean, I've been to a million seminars. I don't know what kind of recollection you're looking for.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, I always remember the seminar where I got my instructorship.
Right.
That was, I was just so racked up with nerves because I wanted it so badly, and I was trying so hard, and I was trying not to worry about it, but just train. And when he finally gave it to me, I didn't want to cry or anything like that. I wanted to vomit. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But then there's this great thing, this great sense of relief afterwards, because it's like finally after so many years, because it had been 5 years that I had to get back into it. Well, 5 years since I said I wanted to pursue it, but I've been back in it for 6 years. So when he gave it to me, yeah.
So he was keeping you to that 5-year schedule that he has for instructorships, huh? Do you make it out to LA for the conferences, for the instructor conferences?
I made it out a couple years ago, and I was intending on going back, and then my daughter went to school, and it's that's a lot of money, the school. So I do want to go back. I just, I'm not sure yet if it'll be this year, next year. I don't know. But yeah, I love going out for the instructor camps. So.
All right. So you just mentioned, the tons of seminars and what have you. When you look back on all these years, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Is there, like, okay, because it's a random question, so I'll give you one of my answers. If people say to me, is there anything you would have done differently? I would have not followed Inasano so much. In other words, I would have spent more time traveling around the world and seeing more of the world, but I dedicated all of my traveling to following Inasano. So that's something that I would do differently. So when you think about all these years, all these seminars, all these camps, all these interactions, is there anything that comes to mind that you think you would do differently if you were to do it over again?
No, because I think that
No, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. You're too level-headed. That's your problem.
What?
Even though you're creative and flowy and what have you, you're too level-headed.
Well, sorry. But I think that everything that I've done and all the paths that I've taken have led me to where I am now. So saying what I have done something differently is kind of pointless, because then I wouldn't be where I am now. Of course I remember
That's a very cute way of saying, what a dumb question, Dwight.
No. I remember having a conversation one time with a friend of mine about, this was early on when I was working. It must have been before 2013, because I was like, how come all these people that used to be behind me are now ahead of me? And I could have been a senior instructor by now if I had not had kids and gotten married and gone to school. And she's like, yes, but look what all you've done, and she said, I'd rather be in your position and have all that and take the time off. And like, yeah, you're right. So it did slow me down, because you can't do everything all at once. So that whole myth about having it all. Okay, you can't do everything all the time. Sometimes you have to focus on your family. Sometimes you have to focus on your martial arts. So it's like I had to take that time to focus on my getting, my college degree and starting a family. I would not have been able to put into the martial arts what I did before that. I mean, granted, I was used to training. We would train like 20 hours a week when I was back at Timlin School, because I would just go there every day after school and be there until they closed. So, so that's been kind of hard too, because now I'm 49, and I see these young studs that are in their 25 and they have these rock hard pecs, and you know they're training 8 hours a day, and you know they're posting all these videos. Look at me, I'm doing kicks, and I'm just like, I don't. It makes me want to. But that's, you know, I can't do that. That's not me. That's not my life, and that's not who I am. But you know, when they get about 10 years older and have a family, they're not going to be doing that then either. So,
Right.
anyways,
Let me ask you this. So in 2025, when I'm still doing the Jeet Kune Do dialogues and you and I talk again,
okay.
what's going to be different? What's going to be different?
Oh, well, my kids will be out of school, so hopefully I'll be able to, you know, travel a little more. I'm hoping that I'll be in a little bit better physical condition. I've had some foot problems this past year, which has made it kind of difficult to train. Plus I'm on my feet at work. So, that has been kind of a thorn in my side as far as being able to train. But yeah, I think the thing I'm always working on is physical fitness and getting stronger and getting better. Because the older you get, if you don't keep your strength up, you lose it. You have to train to keep it the same, not even to get stronger. If you don't train, then it gets weaker. You know, you get to a certain age and you just kind of go downhill. So it sounds depressing, but you know, every seminar that Guru Dan, he says, you know, he always gives us a speech about how many people are over 40, how many people are over 50, and you know, you guys, you got to take care of your bodies, and you got to, every 5 years is different. And
I don't put my hands up anymore when he asks that question.
Really? So, because it's like, you know, when I was 16, I could do whatever. I could train all day. I never got tired, and you know, never had injuries. But as you get older, you have to take care of your body. So.
Yeah. Okay, so let's finish up with this. So you put me in my place and you said, Dwight, you don't have enough women on your program. So who comes to mind that I should have? Did you think of anybody? Because I don't remember if I told you to think of people. Did I?
Yeah, you did, and I sent you a bunch, but then you didn't do anything with it.
Oh, so you did? Okay. Well, Michelle, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this and highlighting all of my inadequacies.
No.
That's true. You did send me a bunch of names. That's true, right? I will get on it. I will get right on it.
I think you should have Cookie on. I don't know if you have before. Have you had Cookie?
I'm telling you, I started doing these in 2017. I didn't even realize that it's been that long. And she was probably one of the first people that I reached out to, but to no avail. There are just certain people that are quite averse to the idea of doing something like this. So, you know, as much as I'd like, you know, to have her, to have Simo Paula, obviously to have Sifu Dan or what have you, it's not going to happen. So, you know, I do this instead. I have people like you who are able to come on and go, Dwight, you need to tighten up on this and you need to tighten up on that.
When are you coming back to Michigan?
So the plan was it was going to be May, wasn't it? In Canton, right? Mm-hmm. At Sifu Hatches. That was the plan. That was fully the intention.
Of this next year?
But of 2020. It was really? That was fully the yes. Okay. Yes, that was fully the intention. So now we got to see, because I don't know. I mean, you know, like March has been like Nick Sakulis's New York thing has been pushed back to May, I think. I think it's May. But now it doesn't even seem as if that's going to work.
Mm.
I don't know that we are going to be back to quasi-normal by May even, the rate that we seem to be going at. In any case, anyhow, but I really do have to say thank you for spending some time here with me, and I'll tighten up on all that stuff and I'll get those people on.
I sent you guys and girls, not just girls.
Anyhow, all right, Michelle, thank you so much, and stay safe out there. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everything that you and people in your field are doing for the country right now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. You take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so that was episode 118 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. I didn't ask her what was the best way for somebody to get in touch with her. Anyhow, I'll put that in the final edit video. All right, so feel free to share, like, and comment. I'll ask questions if you think of something, and I'll have Michelle review everything after posting. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D Woods. At ilovejeetkundo.com, the Quick Skills Series Quick Skills Series Volume 1 is available. Coming up next Friday, what is that? April 10th. None other than my top buddy Bob Landers will be on here with me, and as Bob has said, we're going to talk nuts and bolts, JKD, right? So that should be next Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight, and I think that's it, right? Some of you I'll see on Wednesday for the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. The rest of you come back and hang out with me and the infamous Bob Landers next Friday. All right. Okay. So until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and I'll catch up with you next time. Take care.